Welcome to the Success Pick and Mix podcast. I'm your host, Nicky Raby, a professional pick and mixer. I'm a personal brand coach, a speaker, an actor, a creator, and a podcaster. I'm on a mission to help you find and create your version of success. Your pick and mix of life and business on your terms. A blend that complements your personality, your goals, and your circumstances. Since 2018, I've been sharing interviews and mini episodes to help you unlock your next step, to make it real and make it happen. Round here, we dream big. We go for the ideal version. We talk about money and make moves our future selves would be proud of. This podcast is free and available for you whenever you need it. So do rate, review, and subscribe for new episodes. If you want to go deeper with my support, check out my freebies house and unlock the rooms you choose. nickyraby.com/freebies house. I also have workshops, programs, and one-on-one bespoke offerings. For prices and availability, go to nickyraby.com. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with me and my guests. Now, on to today's episode. In today's episode, I'm talking to Katie Birtill, who is an actress and a singer and also a friend of mine. And now, before you sort of think, oh, theatrical entertainment stuff, this isn't for me because it's not about business. The reason that I wanted to talk to Katie today was because I knew she'd be able to share some really practical tips about the in-between bits. I don't know about you, but sometimes I can find, like, when I look online or when I meet people, everybody sort of feels like they're so much further ahead than me, or they've got more views or more opportunities or more, like, millions in the bank, whatever it might be. And often when I meet up with Katie, we talk about, like, what do you do in between bits? What do you do when you're waiting for the opportunity? Or perhaps when you've had that rejection and then you don't know kind of where to go from there and you have to pick yourself back up again. So it's a really interesting, juicy one, and it's relevant for any kind of industry. So if you want to come and join in the conversation, please come over to Instagram at Nicky Raby, or come over to the show notes, nickyraby.com/podcast. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing and rating and reviewing and all that good stuff. The plays are like in their hundreds every single day, and I'm really thrilled, and I've become a bit of a stato actually, adding them to an Excel spreadsheet. So it's really lovely to see the episodes, even like the early ones, going far and wide. So thank you. And we are well on our way to 1 million plays by Christmas. So if you do want to share it with somebody, I would really appreciate it. Anyway, that's enough from me today. Here's the episode. Enjoy. Katie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Nikki.
Oh, you're so welcome. So, tell us about what you do, and I guess what your job title is. Do you have one?
I normally say singer-actress, but it depends on sort of what I'm doing, because I'm also a teacher. I also do a bit of songwriting. Yeah, but singer-actress, actress-singer.
Good.
Yeah.
But you weren't always going to be a singer-actress, were you? What were you going to do? This is like here's what you could have won.
Yeah, so from a young age, even though I loved music and theatre, I didn't see it as a viable option, and I've come from a very academic family. And yeah, I was a medical student. That was the ambition. That was the goal from a young age. I had a real firm focus on it. And it's funny when you go to university and you're suddenly in that, and I didn't get in first time either, because my predicted grades were lower than the grades I actually got. So when I was on my gap year and I had the 3 A's, I then got my placement. But when I was finally in that, lecture hall, and then I spent all my time doing musical theatre. I met other actors that were like, you could do this for a living. And I was like, what? Yeah, it was a strange kind of pivot into what I'm doing now. But yeah, I could have been a doctor basically. Yeah.
Which is super cool, because I definitely couldn't have been, because I was terrible at science at school. But like being able to do both of those, like really those topics like is a real gift. You could always go back to it, I guess, at a later date, perhaps, maybe. We'll
Well, I kind of left, and even when I was at the Royal Academy of Music, where I did my postgrad in musical theatre, I was still enrolled as a medical student. So at the end of my, so I did medical school for 2 years, my preclinical, and then in my third year, I did something that Bristol offer, which is an intercalation degree in international health. And so I had my BSc Hons at the end of that year, and I was like, oh, I could just go now. But I didn't know whether the musical theatre thing was going to happen. I knew it was really competitive. But then I got into the Royal Academy of Music, and then I had a conversation with the dean at Bristol, and they let me have a year of suspension. So even when I was at RAM, I was still at Bristol Uni as a medical student. And they even gave me another year because I was like, yeah, that's been brilliant, but I don't know whether I'm going to get a job because they invest so much money in you. Well, they did then. So even when I got my first job, I was still enrolled as a medical student. And I remember being on tour in Llandudno, having to write the email to Bristol to say I'd like to, terminate my student status. And I was like, no! I remember flushing red, and I was so hot when I had to do that, because that was like, I don't know, 8 years of having that as my plan in life. And I was like, no, I'm just going to sing and dance for a living.
Yeah, one of the most predictable and financially brilliant careers ever. And I guess it is that switch, isn't it? From actually going, oh, I'm going to do something that I really love and want to do, rather than the safe option, because we all need doctors and we always will do. You can't do that, despite Dr. Google proclaiming to know everything about medical things. Like, sometimes you just got to see someone.
Yeah, it was weird when I did sort of make the pivot. I had a very frank conversation with a friend of mine who quite boldly said, I'm worried that you're doing this for very selfish reasons. Because, when you're around other medical students, there's this real sort of worthiness that you are doing a very righteous thing. And the fact I was giving up to do something that I just loved, that he didn't see a huge amount of worth in. And I was like, well, someone is going to fill that place that I would have had as a doctor. Like, there are people that are going to be in whatever GP's practice that I was going to be in, and there are other ways for me to do good in the world. It's not just be a doctor. And I love theatre, and music is something that gives me so much joy and life. And just to be a cog in that machine was still, I thought, a worthy thing to do. I mean, sometimes I think, oh God, what am I doing? I could be a doctor. What am I doing? But no, I don't regret it.
No, and
at all. Yeah.
I guess so. How did that shift start? Because I know that we've always had conversations about, like, when it's really good, it's really great, and then there's those moments in between where you sometimes, or when you're going to the next, I don't know, age bracket, or something doesn't work out, or you think that you're going to get a role and then it ends up going a different way. How do you navigate this industry?
It's a tough one, and it's something that you keep learning, I think, and something that I've learned a lot after signing with a really great agent, who I thought, it was a very big agency a couple of years ago. I kind of put all the power in their hands. And then I was with them for a good year and a half, and nothing happened. And it was almost like I was on the crest of a wave. I'd played Charity and Sweet Charity, and I'd played Kathy in the last 5 years. I played some fantastic roles, and I was like, yes, and I've signed with this new agent. Woohoo! Things are going to happen. And then they didn't. And that was a very good year for me to go, okay, I can't just leave my career and my life up to someone who I'm just on a list. And I was clearly at the bottom of their priority list. And it really motivated me to think, okay, and I was doing one of these kind of like interim jobs. I was working at a cinema, and that was a low point where I was like, I could be a doctor, and I'm just making popcorn.
Yeah. A nice smell of it for the rest of the day.
I love popcorn, but yeah, it made me go, okay, I need to have something else. I can't just be waiting for the phone to ring. Because previous to that, I'd kind of been quite lucky in that I'd had kind of contracts relatively lined up. And because I'm a singer as well, I do sessions and I do gigs, but that had all quietened down as well. And it was just like, what's happening with my life? And I kind of pursued teaching a bit more, and I loved it, and I was really good at it. And it was good in terms of me staying on top of my craft, in terms of me going, okay, I'm getting paid properly for the skills that I have. I can probably cultivate something that can be alongside my career for the rest of my life. And it was a really great moment for me in terms of going, right, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And, you know, at the age of 30, I don't need to be working behind a bar or minimum wage on a 0-hour contract just to keep myself available to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
Because I think you do have to take control. You have to say, right, what do I want to do? And, you know, I'm sure we'll get to it anyway, but the fact that I've made an album this year, and that meant that I had a launch gig, and I feel like I've now got my own identity in terms of what I can do. I can do gigs of just me now.
Yes.
And yeah, it's I feel like after a long time of just like riding the wave of this business, I've kind of got more control over it, and it's very empowering. Yeah, it's good.
Well, I don't think anybody ever teaches you how to be an entrepreneur and a creative. And I think certainly in the early years of having the audacity to not only do what you love and get paid for it, sometimes there can be that sense of you're just grateful for being in the room, or you're told to quieten down, or you just have to be patient and wait for permission for somebody else to do that. But also, one thing that I found is that sometimes people who work in the industry back to back to back to back, doing all the things, they're not fresh, and they're not in the world of realizing the struggles, or I don't know, they sort of, I remember in the early years of graduating drama school, kind of going to some very big meetings with some very big people. Some were lovely, some were not, and thinking, oh my goodness, you probably wouldn't know how to do a supermarket shop, yet you're in control of this big beast, or you own a network, or you can do all of these things. And yeah, I'm totally for working in your zone of genius, but it was very interesting that somebody was having so much control, even though they weren't in the world on a full-time basis. Yeah,
I think it is important for those who are going through being in the world, is that it is useful for you as an actor. It's useful for you to develop yourself as a human being and stay connected in so many different ways. You know, it's funny when you graduate and then you kind of go, right, okay, so when am I going to get that job? Or people don't tell you how to survive. And I know so many people that have given up being in the industry because they can't handle being out of work. Yeah. Because that is a massive part of it, I think. And I know this is going away from what you were just saying about staying connected, but I think for those who are listening to this podcast going, oh, you know, I'm in between jobs, is that you can still learn and still gain life experiences, and still you're cultivating stuff that you will be able to use in the future. Does that make sense?
Yeah, nothing's ever wasted, really.
No, and what's interesting is actually I had an audition recently for another production of The Last 5 Years, which I did before I got married a couple of years ago. And even in that audition, when I had to sing that song, I just felt like I had even more to give to it. And I almost wanted to do it again. And I know I've only had 2 extra years of my life since playing it, but I have got married and I've had, like, that's the struggle of going, okay, what am I doing? Why am I in the cinema? Like, so I had...
I thought you were going to say, the struggle of my marriage.
The struggle of my marriage, no.
Chris, if you're listening to this.
But things have happened in that time that have really deepened my connection with myself as a person.
Yes.
Which makes me a much better actress. And it was a bit of a eureka moment, even though I didn't get the job because I think they wanted to go with someone that had never done it before. It was interesting for me to revisit that role again and go, oh my gosh, I've got even more to give, and that will continue, you know. Yeah.
And I think this pressure actually to, especially in, you know, the acting industry or creative industry, sometimes even in like the design thing, it's all about the young kids in Shoreditch or wherever the latest, coolest place is to hang out, or, you know, to have made it by 30 or to be famous. But actually, I was saying this to a friend the other day, that if fame came my way now, I would be able to, well, famous last words, right? I mean, you'll see me on the front of the news of the world, like, way, but like, I feel like I would be able to handle it. And the fact that it didn't come to me when I was 18, 19, 20, and it almost did. I did have a few very near misses that would have changed my life, that actually I don't think it wouldn't have been a great fit for me at that time, because I wouldn't have known enough about who I was as a person. Yeah, absolutely. I had a meeting with the manager of someone that I was doing some backing vocals for, and they kind of picked me out and were like, okay, let's have a conversation. What do you want for your career? Almost saying, look, we can try and talk to labels and blah, blah, blah. And I was only 24, 25, but they were already telling me then, oh, you're 25. Oh, we thought you were younger. That's gonna go against you. Oh, God.
Okay, do you know what I mean? That they already at the age of 25, they were like, oh, right. And I remember thinking, oh God, like, I'm at the end of my expiry date. Like, what if it doesn't happen to me in the next couple of years? That's it.
And also you then move into that energy of like, I really need this. Hi, I'm available. And you go into that sort of pushing vibe, which is the least appealing thing ever, because you want to have that slightly sort of cool attitude. You know, I've seen Matt, my partner, cast sometimes, and he just literally kind of, I mean, he's serious about his career, but he will sometimes be like, hiya, yeah, great, where do you want me to stand? And, you know, he's very chilled about it, almost like he's walking into a pub.
Yeah, and that is so, you know, attractive in terms of, that's how you want to be. You want to be completely settled in yourself and go into a room and not appear desperate. Like, I remember having conversations with this management, and they were like, yeah, you're a bit jazzy, but we don't really know the jazz market. What can you do? Can you do the country pop thing? I was like, yeah, I can do the country pop thing. And actually, I do love country pop. But it was almost like they were saying, this is what is commercial. Can you do that, please? And I was sort of going, well, yeah, I'll do anything. Like, and it was less about, I didn't really know who I wanted to be as an artist, because I'd always thought, oh, I just want to be a performer. And I, as you say about feeling grateful all the time, you know, because I had ambitions to be a doctor, and then I was like, I'm going to live the dream. I felt that every opportunity I had was like, thank you so much for letting me sing, and thank you so much for letting me act, and oh, you know, I'm living the dream every day. And I sometimes still feel like that, and I think it's important to be grateful, but I was overly grateful, and yeah, I was desperate. I didn't know, I was trying to fit into their box. And now, a bit of a clang, but a couple of months ago I was number 1 in the iTunes jazz charts.
Woo-hoo!
With my own album.
So brilliant.
With my own album that was my own like my own idea. I had control over everything. And I would not have had that had things really progressed with this opportunity that I had when I was about 25. I probably would have been at the mercy of the label, at the mercy of all these different people, and I would have just been a product that they wanted to mold. Whereas fast forward 6 years later, I'm 31, they probably would never even looked at me going, oh, you're 30. What? The fact that they thought I was over the hill at 25. And had I told myself, my 25-year-old self, don't worry, in 6 years' time, you'll make your own album, it'll do really well, I don't know how I don't think I would have believed myself.
Well, I was going to say that, like, from what were the practical steps that you took? Sort of like going, right, I'm going to change my life and change the pace and the tempo. I'm trying to use not too many musical analogies here. How did you change the signature or that? No. How did you sort of start to get back into the flow of going, actually, I'm in control of doing that? And secondly, as sort of part of that process, how did you keep the quiet voices, quieting down the voices that may be like, yeah, but is it going to work out? Or I think sometimes when we're trying to figure it out, sometimes we can plow money into stuff or time. And especially if we're in a bit of a vulnerable state at the same time, it can be like, oh, is this really going to, you're not necessarily starting from a full place. Mm-hmm. How did you dig but deep, babe, basically is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, so one of the reasons why I was adamant to do this album is I did a session, and it's frustrating, and I want to say anybody can do it, but it did cost me money, and because it was self-funded. I mean, people do Kickstarters and all this stuff, but I think also one of the reasons why I didn't do a Kickstarter is because I think part of me was scared that I wasn't good enough and I didn't deserve people's money before I'd made anything. I didn't think people would give it to me on the promise of a great album. Once I'd made it, I was like, yeah, this is good, buy it. Yeah. But I got some money from this session that I did last year for a film, like singing backing vocals. And it was suddenly a little bit of a money injection that I didn't expect, and I just put it aside and I was like, that is album money, because it's almost bonus money, But then I sat on it for like 6 months. And it really, as you say, those gremlins, those voices, and there's a really great Brené Brown, I don't know if you watch her stuff.
I do, I love her.
Oh my God, I love her. Of those two voices, one that says, you're not good enough, you're not good enough. And then the other one, once you've sort of ignored that one and you've plucked up the courage and you're like, right, I'm doing it. Oh my gosh, I think I can do it. And then this other voice comes in that's like, who do you think you are?
Right.
And it's those two gremlins that you're constantly battling. And oh my goodness, throughout this whole process, I've had both of those really loud. And I just had to sort of focus on all those champions that I've got in my life, like my family and my husband and people that have been telling me for years that I can do this. And even just having a deadline for me was important. So I did these concerts around the UK with an orchestra, and it was just me and one other soloist. And that was, again, a bit of a breakthrough job for me, because I'd covered lots of people doing these jobs. So I'd been told to learn the repertoire, and if anybody was ill, I'd have to go and do the concert. But this was the first time that it was actually my concert, and it was singing with this big band / orchestra in these incredible venues, and I was so excited about it. But somebody had told me who does these things regularly, like, do you have any merchandise? And I was like, oh no, but I really want to do this album. Yes. Maybe that would be a good reason to do it. And
then you start thinking, like, should I make baseball caps?
Yeah.
Should I make, like, a leather jacket like they sell at Mamma Mia for 200 quid?
Or just my name, like,
with your face on the back.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So I thought, okay, this is a really good deadline for me because I'll be exposing myself to an audience that would never normally hear me. I'm sort of reaching out because I think that's another thing that we struggle with as artists, and is that we have like our Facebook following or our friends and family or those people that are kind of fans, but they're kind of the fans who are strangers are kind of few and far between.
Yeah.
They've at least met you at some point in their life, even if you're not in contact now. But these were going to be complete strangers around the country that I could try and reach. And so I had that as a deadline, and then I was like, right. And then it got closer and closer, and I still hadn't done anything because of the fear, and those gremlins, those voices. And then I did a gig, and it wasn't even my gig. It was my father-in-law's gig, and he said, do you want to come up and do a number? And I do this kind of thing quite a lot. But I got up and I was like, guys, do you know Blue Moon in C? And they were like, brilliant. And then that was all I needed to do. And I had these fantastic musicians. And we took the house down. It was a brilliant performance. And there was no preparation. I just had great talent in the room. And I came out going, it's easier than I think it is. I just need to keep it simple. I need to book a studio. I need to book the musicians. I just need to have the songs in my head, and that's all I need to do. Like, what I had it is this huge, big thing, like, this album, like, how am I going to do it? And all I needed to do was just do those little steps and break it down, and not just see it as this massive, overwhelming entity that was just too much. Like, just me going up and singing on the fly, and it being fantastic. I was like, it's easier than I think it is.
And something that is already part of you rather than something that you have to get to. And I feel like this with ideas is that, I know it sounds really woo-woo, but sometimes I'm like, look, it's in my body and in my head for a reason. Now I've just got to bring it to life, and it's not something that I have to go and purchase or go and find. It's like, it's there, half of it has been done already, just bring it to life.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the most profound things I've ever said, but no, I'd never sort of thought of it until you said it in that way, that, it's just not that far away, whatever it is that you want to do. And how did it feel like when it went to number one?
That day was crazy. So when it was the release day, so, I had it on pre-order, which is one of the reasons why I think it helped with the with getting it to number 5. Because on the day I was like, I put it up for to be in the charts, and I'd been doing a lot of promotion throughout the whole journey of the album. I'd been trying to sort of post things on social media, which I don't know if you've covered this, but that whole self-promotion thing I have to battle with a lot, because you're going, hey, look at me, look what I can do. Anyway,
and also you get that thing. I mean, I went to a really regular school, and if you even like put your hand up, it was not cool. Like, you were instantly a show off. You were instantly like a bit of an idiot who needed to pipe down. The growth mindset was not encouraged where I grew up.
Yeah, well, to be fair, like, I was a bit of a geek. Like, I'd be the first person to have my hand up. But that was, like, the academic side of me, which I think was maybe bullshit. But because my voice and my music, it's so me, it's a massive, vulnerable part of who I am. And also, because I do it for a living, and, that whole imposter syndrome, expecting someone to knock on the door and be like, we found you out. You've got away with it for all this time,
but you shan't be singing again or getting paid for what you love.
You're actually rubbish. Yeah, you think, oh my gosh, I'm putting it out there. What if all these people that have booked me in the past listen to it, go, oh God, I've actually never properly listened to her, and she's rubbish. You worry that that's going to happen. But throughout it and all these little clips, like, I'd had some really lovely feedback, and feedback from people that I hadn't spoken to in years. You expect it from your mum or whatever, but
yes,
that was really encouraging. And then on the day of the release, I saw that it was number 5, and I was like in between Frank Sinatra and Ella Fitzgerald, and I was like, what is going on? And I posted something.
Hey guys.
Yeah, I posted something on Facebook going, oh my goodness, it's released, guys. But also, this has just happened. I'm number 5 in the charts. And then people were sharing that and commenting, going, oh, well done, I'll check it out. And people saying, oh, I've just bought it. And then because those people were buying it, it got to number 3. And then I was like, guys, in the last few hours, I've gone from 5 to 3. Maybe I could be number 1. Like, but it would have to probably be today. Like, it has to be with the statistics and stuff. Like, if you wouldn't mind sharing it, if you enjoy it, if you wouldn't mind sharing it. And then all these people came out of the woodwork, and of like people that I did youth music stuff with, you know, like 15 years ago, saying, this girl, she's great, you know, please, we could try and get her to number 1. And it was almost like out of nowhere, I had this campaign going to try and get me to number 1. And I made it to number 1, and I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it.
And also, presumably, because you're a singer, then you visualise that moment yourself. Even if you, like me, used to just sit on the loo when you were a kid and talk to yourself and give yourself the Oscar or the whatever award-winning prize, you probably spent quite a lot of time daydreaming this.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Like, I remember someone saying, oh, you know, I remember it being in a youth theatre biography. I think I was playing Adelaide and Guys and Dolls or something. And, you know, it was more of like a questionnaire biog. And it was like, what are your dreams? And I was like, well, my ambition is to be a doctor, but my dream is to be a singer and a performer. And I remember thinking, oh, a bit like Norah Jones. Like, I'd love to be doing that kind of thing. Yeah. Getting to number 1 was crazy, and I think in the national, like, out of all the genres, that day my album was like 73, and still that's like crazy. That I was in the top 100 and also in like the top 70, which little old me, you know, in a tiny little recording studio making this little album. Yeah.
It's lovely. I think sometimes people need to hear it from you. And I heard this from another coach, that sometimes the way that you do it or the way that you sing jazz is the perfect solution for somebody. And like with coaching or with acting, it's like sometimes you'll get people who do Shakespeare, and you know, sometimes you'll watch the video of when you do Shakespeare at school and you're like, oh, finally, now I get it, now I know what it's all about. And it's a lovely thing, because you're bringing that music to a new generation.
Well, yeah, and one of the things that I did is I did musical theatre songs in a jazz style, because I wanted something that was relevant for everything that I did. Because I did an EP a few years ago of my own songs, which is 4 songs, and that was very scary. And it was almost even more scary because it wasn't like I could even hide behind the writing. Like, the writing was my own, the lyrics were my own. But the singer-songwriter world is completely different. I didn't understand it. I didn't really know how to push for it. And as soon as I released it, I then got a musical theatre job. I then got some session work. And I didn't know how to pursue being a singer-songwriter. So when it came to making another album, I was like, right, let's actually be honest with myself. Yes, that was a great itch to scratch, and I'm really proud of that little EP. But when I'm true to myself in terms of who I want to be as an artist, I want to be able to be still in musicals. I want to be able to be a jazz singer. I want to be able to be a concert singer. How can I tie this all together in a package? And so doing musical theatre songs in the jazz style has kind of allowed me to kind of cross over those two. And interestingly, a lot of my musical theatre friends have bought the album or listened to it who don't normally listen to jazz, but they've connected to it because they connect to that material, they connect to the musical theatre. And I was worried. I sometimes worry when I'm in the sort of the jazz world, I'm hanging out with proper jazzers, you know, and I always feel like a bit of a fraud because I'm not, you know, I haven't done a music degree. I don't know the ins and outs of jazz theory. I don't have this kind of, I've got quite a theatrical jazzy voice, you know, it's kind of got those Judy Garland, Barbra Streisand tones in it. And I'm every time I sing, I'm very kind of act through song, you know. I really try and connect to the story. But then I was talking to a friend of mine who's a sax player, and they were like, yeah, but that's you. That's what you do. Don't try and be more of a jazz singer. One of the things that you do that's interesting and will set you apart from other jazz singers is that you are theatrical. And I was like, oh, I don't need to be ashamed of it. I don't have to go, oh, well, you know, I'm not this hardcore jazzer. There is a space for what I do, and I think that is quite a good thing to tell other people, is that whatever you feel like you are best at, there is space for it.
Yes.
There is space for it, and as long as, you know, I'm not saying that everyone who wants to be a singer is going to be successful. You know, you have to put in the time and try, you know, your technique and your craftsmanship and your artistry. But if you're doing all of that as well, and there is a space for you.
And I think sometimes you just have to do what you do really well and focus on that, rather than try and fit the mold of, I don't know, what a business person looks like or what a actor looks like. I mean, you know, when I came to drama school, they were really hot on everybody speaking very well, and that's great, and I can do that when I need to do that, but generally, like, I was really determined not to sort of lose the essence of me and who I was, and I was probably very cocky for an 18-year-old who's just landed in a brand new city, but I felt very passionate about my northernness, and I wanted to hold on to it and not just sort of let it go. I know you have to run to an audition, so I just want to ask you one final question, which is, where do you want to be in 5 years' time?
Oh, I want to, if we're talking like blue skies here.
Obviously, this is me you're talking to.
Yeah, I want to have been a lead in a West End show, and it's difficult. I mean, there are so many amazing things happening in regional theatre, touring theatres, fringe theatres. It's difficult to say, oh, but the West End is the dream. But I just would like to be part of that kind of big show that can have a big impact and a big draw.
You want a revolving stage, don't you?
Yeah, I want to revolve.
Put me on the revolve quickly.
But that's something that I would really like to do. And I mean, it would be brilliant if it was a new show or something that had a lot of interest and traction and a message that I really believe in. That would be great. I'd love to get my album out there and do more gigging and really find my voice in terms of even more so. Like, the launch gig was fantastic. It was so electric, and the audience gave such fantastic feedback. I had a launch gig of the album at the Crazy Cocks in Piccadilly. So I want to be doing more of that. I want to be doing more concerts. I feel like I've just got through a creaky door, and I'm pushing it open. You know, I feel like I'm at the beginning of that, and I've now got so much more confidence in myself than I had 5 years ago. And I truly now, even though before it was always a dream, I now truly go, yeah, I should be getting the leads in the West End. I should be doing these things. It doesn't matter that I can't dance. There are some, you know, I can wing it, but there will be parts out there for me. But even if there aren't, like, I want to continue to be a performer. And in 5 years' time as well, maybe a little bambino. That would be good. Nice. So that's also something that will be new, and I'd have to navigate. But there's so, you know, your podcast and listening to so many people, mums who are making a balance and able to do it. You know, I don't want to go, well, it's my dream or it's my baby. You know, hopefully I'll be able to do both. So in 5 years' time, I want to just keep dreaming and doing, Nicky Raby.
Hooray! But But also I feel like, I do now that I'm kind of nearly 3 years into the whole parenting thing. I feel like it's my responsibility. I said it to an actor at a casting the other day, to saying, no, go on, kid, you can do that. No more, especially since the Me Too movement and all of that. Women were coming up and really being engaged and connected in the conversation. So the fact that there's people like Reese Witherspoon in film who is creating and bringing on loads of great women, she's going, no, what do you need? How do we make this work? And actually finding those solutions. And it could be that you reinvent that part for yourself, that going, yeah, she did dance in the film, but she doesn't dance in the West End.
Yeah. I want to keep being creative, and I think what's wonderful, as you say, with the Me Too movement, and just women are really coming together and listening to each other's stories and saying, how can we enable mothers to continue to work in the spheres that they want to work with, and I think slowly but surely that is filtering into the theatre world, with job shares and hopefully with some creches coming into the West End. So things are getting better. And I almost feel like when I'm a mum, I want to be a loud voice in that. Like, I want to continue to push the boundaries on how much we can do. Like, we can continue to do what we want, even with children.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. Oh my goodness, I feel so inspired. I want to become a singer. I want to create an album. I'm going to be playing around with my microphone tonight, going, I'm just going to do this. If people want to come and find out more about you, listen to the album, buy the album, come and see you, not at your home, like when you're performing, where should they go?
So I have a Facebook page, Katie Birtill. So that's Katie with an IE, Birtill. It's my surname. I'm on Spotify, I'm on iTunes, and also Amazon, all of that stuff if you want to buy the album. I haven't got any dates in currently, but I've also got my website, katiebirtill.com, which I do actually need to update. But
no, it's always these things of going, yes, I haven't done that. Well,
website, which will have my news and my gigs on. I'm currently, I haven't even talked about this, only for the next week, so depending on when you do this, I'm in a show called Nights of the Rose, so I'm doing that till the 26th of August. But then, who knows? How else can you find what I'm doing? I'm getting better Instagram, so I think it's K Birtill or Katie Birtill. There aren't many Katie Birtill, so if you type me in, you'll find me on multiple platforms, I'm sure.
Brilliant. Oscar and I love watching you on YouTube on the West End Live situation. And Oscar just kept saying, more Katie, show me again. So I feel like there may be a West End Wendy in here somehow. But oh my God, I'm not prepared for that life. I think I kind of need him to be a doctor or something. No, he can be whatever he wants to be. But we'll see.
Just really quickly, because I haven't really talked about it, because I do so much in terms of, and I sing lots of different styles. Somebody once told to me that that's okay. Like, don't feel like, I feel like I should either concentrate on being a jazz singer, or I should concentrate on doing musical theatre, or I should concentrate on being a belter, or I should concentrate on being a soprano, like all these little boxes. And actually, I'm almost making a name for myself for being versatile.
Yes.
So, yes, there is a point in focus, and you should always be focused on your goals. But if one of those things that's important to you, and what's important to me, is to have a very varied career. Like, that's one of the things I thrive off. If I had to stop doing one of them, I wouldn't be as happy. So, yeah, I'm happier that I'm at where I am now, rather than saying, okay, I'm never going to do musical theatre again. I'm only just going to be a singer. Like, maybe I will have been further along that road, but I'm glad I didn't choose, and I've had lots of fingers in different pies. Yeah,
I think that's so key, especially because what you're trying to do sometimes might not have been invented yet. Like, I don't know any other actors who have a podcast, or like it's, but I've sort of learnt this, that if I go instinctively with what lights me up, what I want to do, that's when success comes, rather than trying to go, oh, maybe I should do this. Like, I've never been into Shakespeare. It's just not my thing. There are people who are brilliant at it. And in fact, when we had the Shakespeare term at drama school, I got glandular fever. So it was almost like my body going, no. Like, we'll take you out for the whole term so you don't have to participate. But I said that when I got new representation of, like, Shakespeare's just not my thing. And I think knowing your strengths and weaknesses is a really strong asset as a performer, as a creative, as somebody in business, because then people can go, oh, okay, great, so that's not what you do, but this is what you do really well. Yeah, both what you want to do and what you don't want to do are both important. Yeah, and never be afraid to say no in any circumstance. But I think also you're always the common denominator in your career, and you're always going to be the one that ultimately, whatever happens, the buck stops with you. So you have to be a real participant in it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, but yes, I've loved chatting. Please go and get the job. I'll be like a pushy friend going, come on, you're great. Go. Actually, I bet you do end up getting this job, because you'll be like, yeah, I've made an album. I've done all these great things.
Look at all these things that I've talked about and I've done.
Yeah. Yeah, just read your biog out, love. It'll be great. But thank you so much, Katie. You've been such a great guest. Thank you. Bye. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you haven't already, feel free to rate, review, and subscribe for all the brand new episodes. If you want to go deeper with my support, check out my freebies house and unlock the rooms you choose. nickyraby.com/freebies house. I also have workshops, programs, and one-on-one bespoke offerings. For prices, availability, or just to have a chat with me, go to nickyraby.com. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with me and my guests, and I'll see you next time.